What if the very first thing you do every single morning is the one thing quietly destroying your focus, stealing your motivation, and slowly eroding the mental clarity you desperately need to live a life that truly means something? What if the habit you have normalized, the one that feels harmless, even comforting, is actually rewiring your brain in ways that make joy harder to feel, success harder to reach, and peace harder to hold on to? You wake up. The room is still dim. The world outside is barely stirring. And before your feet even touch the floor, before you have taken a single conscious breath of the new day, your hand has already found your phone. You tell yourself it is just a quick check, just a glance at the time, just a peek at what happened while you were sleeping. But your brain does not experience it as a glance. Your brain experiences it as a flood, a sudden, overwhelming rush of information, comparison, noise, and artificial stimulation crashing into a mind that was never designed to absorb that kind of intensity before it has even fully woken up. And in that moment, without realizing it, you have already lost something precious. You have lost the one window of the day when your mind was quiet enough to be truly powerful. The science behind this is not complicated, but it is deeply important, and once you understand it, you will never be able to look at your morning phone habit the same way again. Inside your brain, there is a chemical messenger called dopamine. Most people have heard of it. Most people associate it with pleasure, with reward, with that warm feeling of satisfaction when something good happens. But dopamine is far more than a pleasure chemical. It is your brain's engine of motivation, focus, and drive. It is the force that makes you want to pursue goals, complete tasks, and push through difficulty. It is the fuel of ambition and the foundation of resilience. And here is the part that changes everything. Dopamine does not just respond to rewards. It responds to the anticipation of rewards. It fires when you expect something interesting, something stimulating, something new. And your phone, with its endless stream of notifications, headlines, likes, messages, and updates, is engineered with extraordinary precision to trigger that anticipation response over and over again in rapid, relentless succession. When you pick up your phone within the first few minutes of waking, you are not simply checking messages. You are training your dopamine system to expect a specific kind of stimulation, a high-frequency, low-effort, artificially amplified kind that no real-world experience can match. And once your brain has been primed with that level of stimulation so early in the morning, everything else that follows, your work, your relationships, your own quiet thoughts, feels dull by comparison. The focus you need to do meaningful things becomes harder to access. The patience required to build something real begins to slip away. The deep satisfaction that comes from genuine effort starts to feel out of reach. This is not a character flaw. This is not a lack of willpower. This is neuroscience. This is your brain responding exactly as it was designed to respond, only to the wrong inputs, at the wrong time, in the wrong sequence. And this is precisely what Dr. Mindful Shift has spent years helping people understand, not through complicated clinical language, but through the kind of clear, honest, human wisdom that reaches people where they actually live. Dr. Mindful Shift teaches something that sounds almost too simple when you first hear it, but lands with tremendous weight the longer you sit with it. The morning is not just the beginning of your day. The morning is the architecture of your day. What you feed your mind in those first 30 to 60 minutes after waking does not just affect those 30 to 60 minutes. It sets the neurological tone for everything that comes after. It calibrates your sensitivity to stimulation, your capacity for patience, your ability to think deeply, and your baseline mood for hours. The morning is a window, and what you allow through that window in those early, quiet moments determines the quality of light that fills the entire room of your day. When you flood that window with the chaos of social media, news alerts, and the performative lives of strangers, you do not just consume information. You absorb anxiety, comparison, distraction, and a subtle but persistent sense that your own real life is somehow insufficient. And your dopamine system, already stimulated beyond its natural morning baseline, begins to flatten, making it harder and harder to feel genuine enthusiasm for the life that is actually yours. But here is what matters most, and here is what this video is really about. There is another way. There is a different kind of morning. A morning that begins in stillness rather than stimulation. A morning that nourishes rather than depletes. A morning built around simple, screen-free habits that do not hijack your dopamine but protect it, restore it, and direct it toward the things that actually matter to you. These habits are not difficult. They do not require expensive equipment, radical lifestyle changes, or extraordinary discipline. They require only understanding, intention, and the willingness to give your brain what it genuinely needs instead of what the algorithm has trained it to crave. And when you begin to practice them consistently, something remarkable starts to happen. The fog lifts. The focus returns. The motivation that felt like it had abandoned you begins to quietly, steadily, powerfully come back. This is not a promise made lightly. This is what the research shows. This is what Dr. Mindful Shift has witnessed in the lives of countless people who made this one foundational shift. And this is what is waiting for you on the other side of the habits you are about to discover. So you understand the problem. You understand what happens inside your brain when you reach for your phone before the world has even had a chance to say good morning. But understanding the problem and actually breaking free from it are two very different things. Because the pull of that screen is not simply a bad habit. It is a carefully engineered psychological loop designed by some of the most brilliant minds in technology, specifically to feel irresistible. The notifications are timed to maximize urgency. The content is curated to trigger emotional reactions. The scroll is infinite so that there is never a natural stopping point. Every element of that experience is built to keep you coming back, to make leaving feel uncomfortable, and to make the silence of a screen-free morning feel somehow wrong, somehow empty, somehow like you are missing something important. But here is the truth that nobody in the attention economy wants you to know. That feeling of missing something is not real. It is manufactured. It is the withdrawal response of a brain that has been conditioned to need a stimulus it was never naturally designed to require. And the moment you recognize that feeling for what it truly is, not a need but a trained response, not reality but a reaction, everything begins to shift. The first screen-free morning habit that Dr. Mindful Shift consistently recommends is one of the oldest, simplest, and most scientifically validated tools for human well-being in existence. It is something your body has been designed to need since the very beginning of human life on this planet. It is natural light, not the blue light of a screen, not the artificial brightness of a lamp. Real, natural sunlight. When you wake up and expose your eyes and your skin to natural morning light within the first 10 to 20 minutes of rising, you trigger a cascade of neurological and hormonal responses that no app, no notification, and no amount of scrolling can replicate. Your cortisol, the hormone of alertness and healthy stress response, rises at exactly the right level to wake your brain without overwhelming it. Your serotonin production, the neurochemical foundation of stable mood and emotional resilience, begins to increase. And perhaps most importantly for everything we have been discussing, your dopamine system receives a clean, natural, biologically appropriate signal that the day has begun. Not a flood, not a spike. A steady, sustainable activation that sets your neurological baseline exactly where it needs to be for a day of genuine focus and meaningful energy. Step outside. Stand on your porch. Sit by an open window. Walk slowly around your yard or down your street for 10 minutes without your phone in your hand and without earphones in your ears. Just you, the light, and the quiet world waking up around you. It sounds almost laughably simple. It sounds like advice your grandmother might have given you. But the neuroscience behind it is profound and the impact on your daily dopamine regulation is measurable and real. This single habit, practiced consistently, begins to recalibrate your brain's sensitivity to natural rewards, making it easier to feel genuine pleasure from real experiences rather than constantly chasing the artificial highs of digital stimulation. And it is only the beginning, because what you do in those first 30 minutes compounds. Each screen-free choice you make in the morning builds on the one before it, creating a neurological environment inside your mind that becomes increasingly resistant to distraction and increasingly capable of depth, patience, and sustained motivation. The second habit is movement. And here is where the suspense of this journey deepens. Because what research has discovered about the relationship between early morning physical movement and dopamine is something that most people have never been told. And once you hear it, it will change how you think about exercise forever. Most people believe that exercise makes you feel good because it releases endorphins. And while that is partially true, It is actually a significant oversimplification of what is happening in your brain during and after physical movement. The more important neurochemical story is about dopamine itself. When you engage in physical movement, particularly in the morning, your brain increases the production and release of dopamine in ways that are fundamentally different from the dopamine spike triggered by your phone. The dopamine that flows through your brain after physical movement is not a sharp, brief, artificial peak that crashes and leaves you depleted. It is a sustained, stable elevation of your baseline dopamine levels that can last for hours. It is the difference between a lightning strike and a sunrise. One is intense, blinding, and over in an instant. The other is steady, nourishing, and fills the entire sky. You do not need to run a marathon. You do not need a gym membership or a structured workout program. 10 to 20 minutes of intentional movement is enough to trigger this neurological shift. A brisk walk, a gentle yoga flow, a simple sequence of bodyweight movements in your living room. What matters is not the intensity. What matters is the intention, the consistency, and the absence of a screen telling you what to feel or think while you do it. Move your body in silence, or with only the sounds of the natural world around you, and let your brain do what it was designed to do during physical movement. Process, integrate, consolidate, and restore. Dr. Mindful Shift describes this combination of natural light and early movement as the two pillars of a dopamine protective morning, and the science does not simply support this description. The science confirms it with remarkable consistency across study after study, culture after culture, and age group after age group. Your brain was built for this kind of morning. It has been waiting for you to give it back. You have come this far in this journey, and something inside you already knows that what you have been hearing is true. Not because someone told you to believe it, but because it resonates with something deeper than logic, something your body has been quietly trying to tell you for a long time. You have felt the difference between a morning that began in stillness and a morning that began in the chaos of a screen. You have experienced, even if only occasionally, what it feels like to move through a day with genuine clarity, with a sense of calm alertness that makes everything feel more manageable, more meaningful, more yours. And you have also felt the opposite, the scattered, restless, vaguely anxious feeling of a day that started wrong before it even had a chance to begin. The fatigue that has nothing to do with sleep. The irritability that has no clear cause. The sense of going through the motions of your own life without ever quite feeling present inside it. That contrast is not random. That contrast is neurological. And the distance between those two versions of your day is smaller than you think. It lives in the choices you make in those first quiet minutes after your eyes open each morning. The third habit in this dopamine protective morning routine is perhaps the most underestimated and the most transformative of all. It is the practice of intentional thought before consumption. What this means in practical terms is simple but profound. Before you allow any external information into your mind, whether from a screen, a podcast, a news broadcast, or even a conversation, you take a few minutes to be alone with your own thoughts. You sit quietly. You breathe slowly and deliberately. You ask yourself a simple question, and you allow your mind to answer it without interruption. The question can be anything that connects you to your own inner life. What matters most to me today? What am I genuinely grateful for in this moment? What is one thing I want to feel by the end of this day? What kind of person do I want to be as I move through the hours ahead? These are not complicated questions. They do not require philosophical training or spiritual expertise. They require only a few minutes of honest, undistracted attention directed inward rather than outward. And the effect of this practice on your brain, specifically on your dopamine system and your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making, self-regulation, and long-term thinking, is extraordinary. When you begin your day by consulting your own mind before consulting the world's noise, you do something neurologically significant. You activate the default mode network of your brain, the system responsible for self-reflection, creative thinking, and the integration of memory and meaning. You strengthen the neural pathways associated with intentional living rather than reactive living. And you give your dopamine system a purpose, a direction, a reason to fire that is rooted in your own authentic values rather than in the manufactured urgency of someone else's content. Dr. Mindful Shift calls this practice reclaiming your inner compass. and it is perhaps the most quietly revolutionary thing a person can do in the modern world. In an age designed to pull your attention outward from the very first second of consciousness, choosing to turn inward, even for just 5 minutes, is an act of profound self-respect and neurological self-defense. Now bring these three habits together and see what they create. Natural light that resets your biological clock and initiates healthy cortisol and serotonin rhythms. Intentional physical movement that elevates your baseline dopamine in a sustained and stable way. And quiet self-reflection that activates your prefrontal cortex and anchors your mind to your own values before the world has a chance to redirect your attention toward its priorities instead of yours. These three simple, screen-free habits, practiced consistently in the first 30 to 45 minutes of your morning, do not just make your mornings better. They fundamentally change the neurological environment in which you live your entire day. They make focus easier to access and harder to lose. They make motivation feel natural rather than forced. They make emotional resilience something you carry inside you rather than something you have to desperately search for when difficulty arrives. And perhaps most beautifully, they begin to restore your relationship with your own life, with the quiet moments, the simple pleasures, the genuine connections, and the deep satisfaction of doing real things in the real world with a brain that is fully, authentically, powerfully present. This is what Dr. Mindful Shift wants you to carry with you long after this video ends. Not a rigid routine you feel pressured to perform perfectly, not a set of rules designed to make you feel guilty when you fall short, but a genuine understanding of your own brain, a compassionate awareness of what it needs, and the empowering knowledge that you have the ability, every single morning, to give it exactly that. Change does not always arrive as a dramatic moment of transformation. Sometimes it arrives as a quiet decision made in a dim room before the rest of the world wakes up. A decision to put the phone down, to step outside, to move your body, to sit with your own thoughts, to choose, one morning at a time, the life your brain was always capable of living. That decision is available to you tomorrow morning, and the morning after that, and every morning that follows. The only question is whether you are ready to make it. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.